care. In fact, how large is the room in which he finds his feet set, and therefore how full is the life he has before him. So obviously, we want our children to have a full life, one that has meaning and brings purpose and joy. We want not just an education, but an education that matters to that child's purpose and that child's soul. So Charlotte Mason, I'm going to go over a few quick kind of introductory points about Charlotte Mason philosophy and method. And the first is that she wrote a set of 20 principles that guide the method. And so these 20 principles have basic truths like children are born persons and therefore deserve the respect and dignity of other persons, mainly adults, because we don't often treat children the same, with the same dignity and the same rights that adults have. And she saw that as problematic, and that we need to view a child as a person of dignity with personhood and a soul, and that must be respected. Another principle is that all education is self-education, because you can't make somebody learn, right? You can't force someone to learn something. So the child really has to take responsibility and be responsible for his or her own education. That education is the science of relations, that everything fits together, that, you know, subjects are not necessarily separate, that learning as a whole complements each other. And so those are just a brief couple of the principles out of the 20. And I do have a free 20 principles study over on the website. So if you want to learn more, you can go through that little video course, and I have a video for almost every one of the principles, and it walks you through so that you can easily and quickly understand those principles. Oh, and also I meant to mention in the beginning that over on the website, I think Judy put the link on the dashboard, yeah, over to a free handout that I have of everything that I'm talking about today. So you go over to cmplenary.com/homeschoolcon, and you can download a free PDF, and it'll go over all the little points that I'm making today in my talk, and you can learn more about the Charlotte Mason method that way. Okay, so those are some of the principles. So the principles guide the method, and the method has certain practices. One of the big practices in a Charlotte Mason education is narration. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of narration, but it is a big, big factor in a Charlotte Mason education. And narration is simply telling back what you know, because if you don't know something, you can't talk about it. And so the child, after every lesson or every reading, would narrate back to the parent what the child learned during that reading or lesson. And so you don't necessarily have to do tests or, you know, any of these other kinds of things, because if the child can't narrate to you what was being read or taught, then the child wasn't paying attention, the child didn't learn. So it's really, really easy way to gauge how much they're learning and how well they're doing. And it's also, I love narration because it fosters fabulous conversation. We call it the grand conversation. So after a child narrates a passage of, you know, that he read in his history book or literature book, you get to talk about it, you know, and you talk about you know, what did that mean to you? And you discuss these philosophical issues surrounding the lesson. Another big thing in a Charlotte Mason education is living books. So we don't use textbooks. We use books that are quote unquote living. So what does living book mean? A living book is not just a narrative book or in story format. It is that, but it's also one that has profound questions and makes you think. So a history book, for example, America First by Lawton Evans. I should have a copy here, but I don't. It has a format in which it's telling the story of different history stories that captivates the child, makes the child, very interested, wants to learn, and yet the content of the chapters provide for deep philosophical questions. I hope that makes sense. I hope I explained living books all right to you guys. Oh, short lessons. This is another one of my favorite things about Charlotte Mason, is that short lessons. You don't have to spend all day, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. doing schoolwork. Some of the lessons start out as easy as, 5 or 10 minutes for a 6-year-old, and then go all the way up to about 45 minutes for a high schooler. So the short lessons are really meant to keep your child focused and paying attention. And then you switch up the different kinds of lessons that you do so that you're not taxing the brain too much. So you wouldn't have like all your reading back to back, or all your handwriting subjects back to back, or you would vary it up. So varied lessons and short lessons is a key component. And then another thing that I really love is the subjects that I personally call the joy subjects. Some people call them the riches. They're things like nature study, handicrafts, picture study, music, composer study, all those things that some people think are extracurricular kind of subjects, but I call them joy subjects because there have been scientific studies that prove that these kinds of activities reduce stress and increase bonding. So the studies have shown that you reduce your cortisol levels in your body and you increase your oxytocin levels in your body when you engage in these activities, like being out in nature, listening to a beautiful piece of music, looking at a beautiful piece of artwork. And so, sometimes homeschooling can get a little stressful, and you need those subjects that bring down the stress level, everybody's stress level, and they promote bonding between you and your children. So a lot of homeschoolers tend to leave those subjects out, and I say, don't do that, because you need those moments every day where everyone can come together and de-stress and bond and have a really pleasant, wonderful activity. Like walking out in nature really does wonders for reducing stress levels and refocusing and, moving our bodies, all that. That's what I call the joy subjects. And some people say that nature study in the Charlotte Mason education is kind of foo-foo, but nature study really gets to the heart of scientific observation. And so observation is the basis for science, right? And so you're starting at a very young age, helping the child to train his focus and his observational skills. All right, so all of that, fosters the joy, the beauty, the relationship building. Okay, so over on the website, I showed you the books, the volume 6 and the volume 1, and these are actually annotated editions that I annotated because You know, there are other reprints out there if you want to read more about Charlotte Mason and actually read her volumes. But it can be a little bit hard to get through. And, you know, she's talking in late 18th century Victorian English, and she also expects you to know what she's talking about. So she makes a ton of references and, you know, quotes from books and things like that. And she just expects that her audience at that time would know what she's talking about. And of course, us 100 years later may not get that reference. And so I annotated the volumes to make it easier, because like I said, easier, simpler, your way. That's what I'm about, making it easier to homeschool and to get into the Charlotte Mason method. There are some in the homeschooling community that would tell you that you have to do it this way, or you have to do it that way, or you're not doing Charlotte Mason, or you're not homeschooling correctly. And I really reject that kind of thinking, because number one, it's your homeschool. And especially in Texas, you know, you can make the decisions of what curriculum and what you're going to do with your homeschool. And also with Charlotte Mason, it is a method. It's not a system. A system, when you're working with a system, you have to bend to the system's rules and regulations. So it's not a good fit, obviously, for every child. But when you're working with a method bends to you and adapts to you and your child's needs and your family's needs. So my big motto is Charlotte Mason your way, because it's a method. It's intended to be adapted to your family. And in order to do that, I created the Charlotte Mason Your Way form guides. So the form guide walks you through every single subject in the Charlotte Mason education. And then it walks you through how to schedule those subjects in a way that works for your family. And then, of course, also over on the website, you know, we offer consultations, we have free resources, we have the YouTube channel. There's lots of free resources for you to go and learn about the Charlotte Mason method. Judy, do you know if there's any questions or comments that I could answer?
I don't see any. If anybody has any questions, you can hop on and ask, or you put it in the chat if you still have your jammies on.
Oh. I think I talked way too fast.
Right.
I got through my talk too quickly.
That's okay. Yeah, I know you're excited about it. That's awesome. And they always go faster than you think they are too. So what did you like best about the Charlotte Mason?
What do I like best? Mm-hmm. The principle that children are born persons is one that really speaks to me, and is why I was attracted to Charlotte Mason in the first place. I really think that in today's society, we may not value children as we should, as whole persons. So that really spoke to me. And then just the beautiful aspect of it, how beautiful it is and relaxing and joyful it is. All of that really spoke to me. And you know, a lot of families right now are in a time of crisis because of COVID and everything that's going on. You know, our worlds have been kind of turned upside down. And so a lot of people find themselves crisis schooling. And I'll share with y'all, I went through a crisis of my own about 9 years ago. You know, we've always homeschooled, and we were doing fine in our homeschool. I was probably doing too much and adding too much and getting a little bit overwhelmed. You know, we all get a little overwhelmed and burned out sometimes. But at this time in my life, we had a serious crisis, and my mom passed away very, very suddenly. And, you know, she was my best friend in the whole world. And I hope I'm not going to get emotional, but she had a cough one day. You know, we were out shopping the day before. The next day she had a cough. A couple of days later, she couldn't breathe, so my dad took her to the hospital. They couldn't find what was wrong with her.
Oh, no.
On Christmas Day, they called us in and told us that she had cancer and that it was stage 4. And 3 days later, she was gone.
Oh my gosh.
And so my whole world turned upside down. And I was in crisis mode, you know, I was in survival mode. And I have these 2 little kids, and I'm still homeschooling. And my first instinct was to just throw myself into schoolwork and be so busy that I didn't have to think about, you know, what had just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, that didn't last long. I was totally overwhelmed. And so then I said, okay, I'm going to cut everything, right? I'm just going to cut and cut and cut until I feel like it's manageable. So I cut it so far back that now we're just doing like the 3 R's, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Right.
Well, that's doable, but I knew there was something missing, right? There was no joy in our homeschool. It was just these subjects that we just had to get through, and yes, we were done, but there was nothing meaningful about it. So that's when I sat down and figured out a schedule that would work for me, that would have a good balance of those essential subjects that we all need, right? You can't ignore those subjects, but also has a balance of the joy and the beautiful subjects, because I needed that in my life at that time. And so that's really the backstory of how I came up with the form guides. Because after I implemented that schedule, I had a peace come over me that yes, this works. And in a time of profound grief,
Mm-hmm.
I had a little bit of joy and comfort in my life. And that's what Charlotte Mason education did for me and my family.
Nice.
And so that was probably the moment that I said, you know, more people need to know about this Charlotte Mason thing.
Right.
So yeah, so that's when I started. It was right after that we started our local CM co-op, and we started inviting other families to join us and learn more about Charlotte Mason. And so it's just grown from there. And I just love it so much because it touches my heart and my soul. And it does the same for my kids and my family.
Very cool. So
that was a little side tangent there.
No, that's great, because that really helps people to really understand where you're coming from, and it also helps people to appreciate what you're getting out of it, which is something that you don't always know when you're talking to somebody about a curriculum.
Yeah, it's not just a curriculum. It's definitely more of a philosophy and a way of life. I don't want that to sound, you know, cultish or woo-woo, but you know, you start to study Charlotte Mason's philosophy and her principles, and they start to creep in to other areas of your life, and they really do make you look at things a different way. And I personally think that's needed these days, especially when it comes to children. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah. I don't know much about Charlotte Mason. It just wasn't something I was exposed to, but I was I was always understanding it was very hands-on, very kinesthetic. Is that something that's true about it, or is that just something that I heard from Montessori schools?
Not necessarily.
I mean,
You
it's a
know,
good thing, but just, yeah.
say again?
It's a good thing. I'm just wondering if that's something, because I know that it's hard to find kinesthetic curriculum type things, and especially if you've got a kid that's very active and very, very hands-on.
Right. Well, some of the hands-on subjects are like handicrafts, where you're learning to do things with your hands, whether it's, woodworking, leather tooling, knitting, sewing, all those things. And then, of course, there's drawing and painting. Those are actual subjects. So there are a lot of things that are hands-on, and of course, nature study as well, and documenting what you find in a nature journal. All that's very hands-on. But what I like about Charlotte Mason is that the lessons are so short that you're normally done by noon or 1, depending on the student's age. And so you have that whole afternoon free to devote to the child's interests. So now the child can take something that he's interested in and go down that rabbit trail and spend hours, building forts or making Lego constructions, or what the child is interested in. And so that's important to me, that the child have downtime, what maybe we would call boredom time, so that the child can then pursue his own interests.
Nice. Very good. Cool. Very good. So I did put the link for your stuff on everybody's timeline, so they should be able to go there. And
Thanks.
You said there's videos there, and there's a handout as well. Very cool.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I've got a whole YouTube channel, lots and lots of instructional videos. We have some courses that people can take also that walk you through some of the volumes. And I'm working on a CM 101 course, but it's not done yet, and hopefully soon. But there's lots of resources on the website.
Very cool. Something flitted through my brain. Oh, anyway, I wish I'd have found this one when my kids were younger, because I really think especially my son would have really liked that. It sounds very similar to an English curriculum that we had when they were very young that I loved, because it was quick, short, and I like what you were talking about, the narration. I just learned, somebody recently said, I think it was Tony Robbins, was saying that when you learn something, the way to learn it better is to regurgitate it back and write it down, because then you're not just learning it, but you're actually being able to retrieve it from the brain and the memory. If you don't do that, you don't have a retrieval system like you would with, say, a narration thing.
Yes, that's absolutely the heart of narration, because the act of narrating actually moves the information from short-term memory to long-term memory. So now you're able to recall it, months down the road if you need to. So yeah, when you're able to tell someone about something that you learned, you are cementing that information in your brain even more.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and telling us about that, because it's something I had very little experience with, and I'm glad that you were able to come and discuss that with us. So,
well, thank you. Thank you.
I had one other question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
What would you say that your son thinks is the best part, or your kids think are the best part of the Charlotte Mason?
So my son's almost 17, and my daughter just turned 12. My son loves history and literature. He loves Shakespeare. Shakespeare is a subject in Charlotte Mason education. They probably like the short lessons, I would say. Probably their top thing. They like that they're done, But yeah, he really, and watching my kids narrate, it's just so wonderful, because it develops that whole public speaking and confidence, and telling your thoughts and organizing your thoughts and relaying your thoughts in a manner that gets them across to the person you're talking to. And so I think narration has been very helpful in that aspect. My son is now gone on to be an actor, and I think narration played a key role in
Probably,
that.
yeah.
And my daughter, she's all about science and math, so she loves, you know, the nature and the science experiments and that sort of thing. She loves Shakespeare too, though. She loves to recreate Shakespeare scenes with Legos, and she'll make little stop motion movies with the little Lego people about, you know, A Midsummer Night's Dream or whatever
That's cool.
Shakespeare play we're reading.
So I'm just curious, how does Charlotte Mason handle the math?
Math
could be a tough one.
So there's been a resurgence of math the CM way recently. So obviously short lessons, but to facilitate the child in learning the mathematical concepts and truths on their own. So you explain kind of a math problem or situation, and you let the child come to the solution, figure it out on their own, basically. Yeah. Most Charlotte Mason curricula or whatever will say, you know, just pick the math that works best for your child, because math is so very individual, and what works for one child will not necessarily work for another. But there are some CM math books out there that kind of walk you through the CM method of math, but they are very teacher intensive. And so they're not always, you know, a good choice depending on your family situation.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming in and for telling us all about this.